Thank you, Mike. It's always a privilege, an honor to be able to come before you folks to talk a little bit about economics. It's a boring subject, I realize, and that especially with what Senator Bozeman said and what Bob has told you. I've been involved with Farm Bill since 1990. It's about my 7th one now, and I keep telling Audrey that's been working with me off and on over the years that it can't get worse. And I think she'll quote you, say, that's what I tell her every time, and each time after we get to start another one, I say, it is worse. So it's more, and then Bob and them and your leadership asking, okay, you need to pull another rabbit out of the hat. That's never easy. But the key is, it's you farmers. And before I get started, I want to thank two folks. Audrey Luke Morgan sitting over here. If you stand up, please, Audrey. You're going to be answering the questions afterwards, so I want to make sure they know who to talk to. And my other's my research assistant, Zalyn. He helps pull all my data together. He knows where it's located. So we have the master, of any peanut database there is in the world. Before I get started, usually everybody thanks the folks after your speech. I like to do it before, because if we're running over time, is that basically the two biggest things is to the Georgia Peanut Commission and the National Peanut Board. They had the vision to invest into the type of concept program I saw was needed, and they invested the money, and I think their return on investment, Andy, has been worthwhile for them. Also, I want to thank the Southern Peanut Farmers Federation for their support, and also Texas, who's helped support the program. And with these organizations, I'm able to do the economics to help you folks out there. But the biggest thing is the farmers. The ones I've dealt with over 100 farmers with this topic I'll be talking about that take the time, which I'm in the process again of updating our representative farms, and it takes up maybe 3 hours. Depends on how much they want to talk and how much rain's going on outside to get the detailed information I need to put together to give it to your leadership, that they can then give it to the congressmen and to the senators to make sure it's going, that you are represented with the true facts. Basically, the key thing to the whole program that's been used in the past in the policy is these representative farms. Some of you may not be aware of them, but basically I'll say two key things, and then Bob could give you a dozen more, is if you like separate payment limits, and you like that increase to $5.35 on reference price, it's due to these representative farms. And there's other pieces that have been used up there when they get into negotiations, but these are the key things, and it represents across the whole United States. So what is the cost of production? Each of you guys have your own, and ladies, you know what your cost to a degree what it is, but maybe not totally. And as we go through these, we find out, and that's one of the key discussion points when they get in the Farm Bill. What is the cost? USDA has a database that they give every year what the cost is. And the only other one out there is from our representative farms. There's no other structure out there that gives you what the cost is for these farms, to produce peanuts. And it's on, we get down where we're down in the ground level with you folks to get the information and make sure you're telling us the truth. There's many a farmer out there will tell you how I'll get into them and say, now I know that's not true, because I listen to Scott Tubbs and other extension and research folks in the universities, what they're, the practices that's being used and what are the costs of some of these chemicals. And that's key. Senator Bozeman mentioned about Texas A&M with their representative farms have about 90 some. Their farms don't cover peanuts at all. They may have 2 of them that have some peanuts. All of their farms are basically cotton, wheat, grain, corn, soybeans, livestock, and dairy. They don't address where we have 22 on just peanuts across the country. So basically we have it's where every farm bill I've always had to do debates with up there in Congress, provide the information that this is really the cost is to produce a ton of peanuts. And I'll explain that to me. What we did, I do not have we're in the process now of updating our rep farms for 2021 costs. So I took our 2017 that we did 4 years ago at this same time period. But then we got USDA released not too long ago what they say is the cost of production based on 2020 data. And so if you look down, it shows how much more detail we get. The only place we have really agreed to on close to what the cost is seed cost. Most of the other stuff, they're way off on doing it. And also they don't include some things. For example, wild hog or deer control, that's become an issue for you guys. And they don't cover the cover crop. Even though they talk about climate change, Bob, they don't even have in their budgets what it costs for you to do a cover crop. And then we got, the repairs and maintenance, because as you guys keeping this equipment longer, it takes more money to repair, to keep that up. And so basically, when you look at what I call the variable input cost on a per acre basis, our cost that we show that comes from you guys is 58% higher than what USDA says it is. And this is some of the stuff that has to be used to show, educate them what it means. And I did it too long. So when you get down to the total cost, just the total cost per acre, independent of your yield, we're 35% difference. We're 35% higher than what USDA says. That makes a big difference in terms of when you're going to be arguing in the Farm Bill what the costs are in terms of why you need certain supports. If it's going to be a safety net, you need to have that. And so when you get on a per ton cost, back in 17, on our 17 numbers, not updated, it was 552. Now Audrey and I've done 4 rep farms. By the end of next week, we'll have about 7 more done. And by July 30th, I'll have a whole Southeast done. And basically from just those 4 farms, the cost per acre has increased, which everybody knows that's the case. And I was at the USA Peanut Congress, and I talked to some of the guys in West Texas, and they were saying, they asked one farmer to another, says, I feel like my costs have increased 15% this year over 20 costs. The other one said, yeah. So we're not getting all that. And basically what we're finding, the yields are flat. You're not getting those, big increases that way you can keep that per ton cost down. So basically when you get down to it, that's where we're at, and that's where we need this valuable information to help your leadership in terms of if we're talking about safety net, this is what we need for a safety net. And also we also collect the equipment stuff. So back in 2017, the average southern peanut farmer was around over 2 million plus. And I know you'll look at some of those numbers, like cotton equipment was only 344,000. Said, hey, where's my 800, 900,000 roll picker? But this is average across those 22 farms. But that's what some of the information is given to Bob when they're talking about we don't need separate payment limits to show the cost structure of a southern peanut farm versus my cousin's farms in Iowa, the Illinois, the corn and soybean guys, or if you get into Kansas and Nebraska with a wheat farm, what the cost of equipment is. There's a big difference, and that's where part of the use that he's used to justify why we need to continue this separate payment limit, because each farm bill, they keep trying to kill it, if I correct Bob, and that's where he comes back and says, give us the numbers to do it. So what is the financial state of the peanut rep farm? Before I get to the next slide, this morning at the profitability breakfast, the one young farmer said about when the question was asked, how can we sustain the family farm and continue on? His one answer is, you need to get a side job. Your wife needs to get a job outside the farm to be able to keep going. These farms were built to show what it costs for a family farm where it's not dependent upon outside income to keep you going. That's where we get these, looking at it. Sorry. So basically, I've got the 2013, 2017, 2021. This is looking at just your row crops. If you got livestock, like one of the guys didn't want to have livestock around, It's just strictly, it's basically peanuts, cotton, and corn. Maybe some soybeans or wheat might be added in there to look at just what that is with the cost. And down the bottom line is, if you see red, that's negative. That is your net, cash flow. We do cash flow basis, because that's the other thing the USDA in their budgets is we have 3 cost interest charges in there. We got one for your operating capital, because you borrow part of that. We've also got an equipment loan that you have to pay. And then also you may have a land note that you had to borrow against your land that you own, the part you own, to take care of the, to pay some of the bills. These are based, how we did it was this 2017 and 2013 are the 2 years we did the update. So that's based on what the information we collected those 2 periods of updates. The 2021 is we kept the 2017 cost structure, but we had starting in this, when you start planning, we had Zalin go the futures market so you can forward contract on cotton. At that time it was 81 cents a pound. Corn was $5.42 a bushel, and then we took $4.75 for peanuts. That was back in the spring. That's kind of the price you get. We took those numbers with the 17 cost structure and 17 yields to see what it would be, and you can see it's all negative. And so what's happened, we're finding as we do these updates over these years, is that the farmers are able to take care of those other cash loans, those other loans, and they're having to roll it into a land note. And so the percent of the land note that we have that says the land you own, what percent is underneath the loan, it might have been only 30%, 40% back when we first started, 20 years ago. Now it's getting up to be 60 and 70% of the land note. And so that's why you still keep going, even with the red, because I don't think there's any off-farm job that you can offset that total red, even if your wife was working at all. So that shows, it's what's going on. And so with so basically the question is, are farmers farming their equity away? And many of you have told me, yes, they are. But the way I like to phrase it when you're talking to the non-ag circle is that equity is your 401k. If you talk to a non-ag person and say, well, I'm diminishing my 401k, my retirement income, it's getting dwindled away, they go, whoa, that's not good. But if you talk in terms of equity or, that land and everything, that's your 401k. It's one of the farmers, mentioned over the years, the 100 years where the grandparents, conserved so they could build up the next one, whatever. That is your 401k. And that's where I think some of the language needs to be changed when we talk about not farming equity, but we are taking away our 401k, our retirement income, so we can continue to produce that sound, safe food supply to feed you folks out there in the world. So that's important that I think that needs to come across. So let's shift from that to this farm bill, since, as Bob mentioned about it, be coming up, and there will be listening sessions, and it's very important. I cannot stress how important it is for you folks, because some of the best ideas, because they'll come to me and say, what do we need to do? I say, I can't tell you what you need to do. I need some ideas from you. And I don't want I need a better safety net. I don't want generalities. We need to know some specifics as to, then I can take it and run it with these models and others to say, okay, the path could go down to door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3. These are what these doors will tell you. You decide which path you want to go. So basically, to me, that sometimes folks don't want to talk about, and I call it elephants in the room, is dealing with basis is probably the number 1. The reference price number 2, and crop insurance is number 3. Basis issue is a distributional problem. You really can't do it for just one crop. I wouldn't want to impose on Bob, try to just do on one crop, because usually it's across all crops. And I knew in the last farm bill, if I correct me, Bob, that to do that updates, the soybean side would have added another $10 billion to the baseline. You didn't have $10 billion added possible in the baselines. So you got that kind of problem. So that's where it gets cost prohibitive. And are there other alternatives? We're open to any suggestion. That's where it's important for you folks to provide what you think might be another solution to it. Reference price. We said we used our reference price in 2014, that we used our rep farm cost of production to get you that 535 from 495. If you go back, some said, let's just have the escalator like we had back in the quota days. Back in those days, the escalator was based on USDA determining what the cost of production was, where they could adjust the yield and the cost. I ran through some scenarios on that, and basically, it doesn't help you. And when we froze it in '96, prior to that, they manipulated the data on the cost, because I never could figure why they did what they did. So it showed you should not ever get an increase. Don't trust that stuff. And there might be other options. That's what we need to hear from you. Crop insurance, that's the big one you keep hearing when you talk about regional areas, the Midwest. We don't need Title I. We got crop insurance. Just make crop insurance better. Increase it, whatever. That's the corn and soybean guys up in the Midwest. They're happy with this, with it. But there's issues in the peanut area, and that's where I got Audrey, have gotten her, she may not realize how backdoor with her, because crop insurance is one of her specialties, that we're going to try to figure out what we can do. And there's a lot of variability. Is it for peanuts? Probably, if I say, is that a safety net? Probably the resounding statement would be no, it's not. And so you get these type issues. And then one of the questions is the cost of producing peanuts moving at a faster pace than the coverage options. Because back, I understand, before we had Michael, that hurricane, that a lot of folks, when we saw rep farms, they would have cat on the irrigated peanuts. When that hurricane came through, they found cat didn't do a squat for them. And so now they're not doing cat anymore. So the question is, what do they do? The other thing we found when we talked to the folks, these panels is having a knowledgeable crop insurance agent that really understands the various options and can tell you this is how it works out. There are a few out there, but probably there are far few between. So to me, as you talk about crop insurance, if that's going to be the, quote, true safety net, the problem with crop insurance and with peanuts, it's got to be actuary sound. That means the amount of premiums paid in and the amount that goes out is like 1.0. And peanuts has problems with that. And so the question is, if they want to do away with Title I, Bob, that do we need to kick out the idea that the crop insurance is going to be actuary sound and just have it where it's going to really truly cover your cost at whatever level you feel like? And to heck with the actuary tables and stuff in terms of setting it. That's, to me, that'd be a question that needs to be, addressed and discussed. So basically, I want to thank you for the attention.